Have you ever felt utterly humiliated by a simple grammatical error?
I have. It haunted me. The past participles of irregular verbs were my nemesis. They lurked in the shadows of my sentences, waiting to expose my ignorance. My name is Alex, and for years I was grammatically challenged. I stumbled through conversations, terrified of using the wrong past participle. Took the cake? I'd stammer, my cheeks burning with shame. The correct phrase I have taken seemed as distant and unattainable as a foreign language. These weren't just silly mistakes, they were a lead weight on my confidence. Job interviews were a nightmare. Social gatherings filled me with dread. I was a prisoner in a cage of my own grammatical insecurity.
One particularly mortifying experience occurred at a networking event. Surrounded by successful professionals, Alex tried to impress them with his knowledge of a recent business merger.
The two companies have went ahead with the deal, I announced, my voice cracking with nerves.
A wave of snickers rippled through the group. Alex's face flushed crimson. He wanted to disappear. From that day forward, Alex's fear of irregular verbs consumed him. He avoided any situation where he might be required to speak. He became a recluse, hiding in the safety of his apartment, surrounded by grammar books. But the more he studied, the more daunting the English language seemed. Every rule had an exception. Every exception had a caveat. He was drowning in a sea of words, and the past participles of irregular verbs were the waves crashing over his head, pulling him under. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Alex felt utterly defeated.
Was I destined to be forever shackled by my grammatical shortcomings? Was there no escape from this linguistic purgatory?
One dreary afternoon, as Alex sat staring blankly at a page of verb conjugations, he heard a knock at the door. It was his neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, a kind, elderly woman known for her love of literature and her impeccable grammar.
"Alex, dear," she said, her voice filled with concern. "I haven't seen you out in ages. Is everything all right?"
Alex hesitated for a moment, unsure whether to confide in her. But something about her warm smile and gentle demeanor gave him the courage to speak. He poured out his heart to her, confessing his grammatical insecurities and his fear of making a fool of himself. Mrs. Higgins listened patiently, her blue eyes sparkling with understanding.
"Alex, my dear boy, there's no need to be ashamed. Many people struggle with irregular verbs, but I can help you. I used to be an English teacher, you know."
And so began Alex's journey to grammatical enlightenment. Mrs. Higgins became his tutor, his guide through the treacherous terrain of irregular verbs. She had a gift for making even the most complex grammatical concepts seem clear and simple. She taught him tricks for remembering the correct past participles, like associating them with rhymes or visual cues.
We met every day in her cozy living room, surrounded by bookshelves overflowing with classic literature. With each passing lesson, my confidence grew. I began to see the beauty and logic of the English language, even in its most irregular forms. One afternoon, as we were reviewing the past participles of some tricky verbs, I experienced a sudden epiphany. It was as if a light bulb had switched on in my brain. All the rules and exceptions suddenly clicked into place. From that moment on, irregular verbs held no fear for me. I was free. I found myself gently correcting friends and colleagues. Most were grateful for my guidance. I had become a sort of grammar avenger, upholding the integrity of the English language. One memorable incident occurred at a dinner party. A guest, a renowned art critic, was describing a painting. The artist has chose a bold palette, he proclaimed. Actually, I interjected, the correct past participle is chosen. The art critic's eyebrows shot up in surprise, but he smiled and said, "You're absolutely right. Thank you. Thank."
The other guests, far from being offended, seemed impressed by my grammatical prowess. They showered me with questions about irregular verbs, eager to learn more. That evening, I realized that my journey to grammatical enlightenment was far from over. It had just begun. As I look back on my transformation, I am struck by the profound impact that something as seemingly small as mastering irregular verbs has had on my life. It has not only improved my communication skills, but has also boosted my self-esteem, broadened my social circle, and given me a sense of purpose.
And so I urge you, dear reader, to embrace the challenge of irregular verbs. Do not fear them, but conquer them. For in doing so, you will not only unlock the full potential of the English language, but also unlock the full potential within yourself. The future is grammatically correct, and it awaits those who dare to master the intricacies of our wonderful, wacky language.